Is there a microphone or something? It's just what?
Just talk loud.
So I'm gonna start very loud. So good morning. Thank you for waking up early, managing to get out of bed, and being here. I'm actually ready for the get out of bed and here for the waking up. We'll have to go through. What I would like to present you today is something which I've been playing on for a couple of months. So the title in 2 weeks is actually not exactly correct because it started as a project which I ran over 2 weeks and then I just keep working a little bit on it once in a while. But the idea is there are a lot of people that are using Github and there are a lot of people which are unhappy about some things in Github, and I was like, well, how hard would it be to actually get something similar to Github but which is not Github? So I'm going to take you on a little tour and present you a little bit what it is. I normally have the About Me slide. This year I've decided to clean it up a little bit. So this is my avatar, and if you look for me, that's normally what you're going to see from me. Besides that, I'm a contributor to Fedora since 2007, and for the last 4 years maybe, I'm part of the Fedora infrastructure. First as a volunteer in my free time, and now as a full Redhat employee. So that's pretty cool. The GitHub, there are a few things that we know about it. It has millions of users. It's pretty much the place to be at the moment. We do have other hosting platforms such as Github or Bitbucket, but these are actually have a less trendy position at the moment. And yeah, you can see more and more organization, projects, not necessarily hosting everything on GitHub, but at least having a clone of their work on GitHub because it just gives your projects a lot of visibility. I mean, they do have 6 million users. So yeah, this brings some advantages, and that has some impact on why GitHub is so much used. There are millions of open source projects on GitHub, which are hosted for free by GitHub, and we are speaking about open source projects and not free software projects. GitHub does not enforce anything on the licensing. It just expects the code to be open source if you want to use it for free. If you don't want, then you have to pay, and then your repo is private. And GitHub has a number of features that just make it convenient to use. It's a nice place, the UI is pretty well done, the user experience when using it is also very well thought of, and it has all these nice little things that just make the developer happy because it just saves them time or makes them, informs them of what's going on. Next to that, we have on Fedora, on our own infrastructure, the fedorahosting.org website, which is also a forge, where you can ask to have your own project added. So I was just, okay, let's try to make a very small comparison between GitHub and Fedora Hosted. On GitHub side, we have basically either Git or SVN. I'm not aware that Mercurial or Bazaar or CBS, for that matter, are supported by GitHub. For CBS, I can understand why. For Bazaar as well, and for Mercurial, it's not getting enough momentum, I think, besides for some project in the Python community. On Fedora Hosted, we actually have much more flexibility, so we actually offer more stuff then. I don't think we have CBS anymore, for obvious reason. GitHub integrates a small wiki website where you can just add your page and using some markdown syntax or like you can add your documentation. We also provide a wiki place, and that's basically because the project are still using the Track forge. So Track provides you with the browser, the repository browser, the wiki, and issue tracker. So that's also something that GitHub provides, a very nice and simple, very simple issue tracker system. Then GitHub has a lot of Git hooks, and these are pretty nice because when you commit, when someone opens a pull request, you can get an email, you can get something on RSC, you can trigger a push on your Jenkins instance, or directly integrates the Travis CI, for example, which is very well integrated with GitHub. On our side, we do have some hooks, but we only have few. And I think when I say few, it's only because I don't want to say one, which is basically the email hooks. That every time you commit something, then the commits are sent to a mailing list or to a certain email address. when you want to create a new project on GitHub, that's actually very nice because it's a two-click process once you log in. On our side, once you're logged in, you actually have to go to the Fedora infrastructure track and ask for a new project request. So you create a ticket and you have to wait a little bit, and the Git and the tickets and the track is set up, and then you can access it. And eventually you could start working before, especially if you use the DVCS. But if you didn't, then basically you have to wait before you can actually start working. And that does depend on someone else. So, for example, we are at the moment, everybody is currently at Flush, which means that your ticket may take a little longer before it actually gets processed. GitHub is nicely updated. Since they run their own software, they have their own infrastructure and they roll out new releases. I don't know if you saw, but a couple of weeks ago, they actually redesigned the pull request and branches views on GitHub. So they redesigned the branches recently. Before that, they did the issues. Other folks. So they have updates. They rework the UI, they rework the code underneath it, and that's all nicely transparent for the user. On our side, we actually are running the long-term release from track, which is 0.12.5. And but there is a 1.0, there is a 1.1, and there is even a 1.1.2 if you want to go to the very latest version. So this is nice, but that does mean that some things and documentation, for example, on the hooks and how to use them, is not necessarily up to date. And if you want the latest and shiny version, which shiny features that the new tracks are bringing, you don't have them. And then you have all things which are only present in GitHub. The possibility of forking and pull request. I mean, this is something that Git by nature does. This is something which you just clone, that's basically your fork. You do a pull request, you have the git request pull command, which just you copy paste the output and send it upstream, and upstream will be able to just get your change from your git repos. But GitHub makes it nice and user-friendly. It's very easy. You just push, you fork, then you clone, you make your change, you push them, and then you have one click of a button, and GitHub opens the ticket, show you the diff. You can add the comments on what's going on, what's wrong, what's right, and so on and so forth. Then you have all the show attribution and contribution. This is also something which is embedded in Git. You can ask Git, well, give me all the commits of all the people which have ever contributed to this repository. But this is something which you have to clone the repo for and then look into the commits and ask the right command, or eventually Google, so how can I get the list of people that contributed to my project. And GitHub already has this for you, so you can directly see the contributors, you can see how many patch they had, you can actually go on to seeing each individual patch which were provided. So imagine you're an HR person, you're actually interested in someone, you can go see on GitHub, well, what is this person doing? What's the quality of his code? Were there pull requests? Were there reviews? Did he have to adjust his code? You can actually check some people like this. And then you have something which is very handy for newcomers, especially if you have like a documentation project, you can do online editing. So basically you are able to edit the Git repository, commit, and make the pull request online without having even to clone the Git repo locally. That's something which is very handy for newcomers. For developers, it's eventually not so handy. Well, that can depend on the patch basically, but you probably don't want to edit code online and submit a pull request without at least testing it. So when we look at the balance, there is a clear win, and we understand why most people are actually moving towards GitHub rather than Fedora still. So the question is, then what's the problem? What's the problem? Why do we even bother? Why are we here this morning? If GitHub provides all this user experience for the user and the developer, then what's the problem? Well, it's basically 4 words. GitHub is not free software. Well, that's 5 words if you don't use the acronyms. That means that you actually are using GitHub. You can move away from GitHub. That's very easy. You have your Git clone, so your source are yours, but your wiki page are not. You have to retrieve them one by one eventually. You have to do backup regularly. If you move away from GitHub, you're losing all your tickets. Every problem, every question that someone asks in a ticket is lost. Every answer that you provided on questions gets lost. Whether you open or close the tickets, all this history of your project is lost. All the discussion around pull request is lost. So why did we actually implement this pull request this way and not that way? And was there an actual reason? Was there a security need that needed to be addressed in this respect and not that one? So when we think about GitHub, we're always like, yeah, but I can move away from GitHub. It's easy. I have my source. I can just, have my Git. I'm using it on GitHub. If I post it somewhere else, it's fine. The platform is not free software. It's no problem. Except that you're actually logged on within the platform because a huge part of your project history and community is in the platform, and you cannot take that away from it. So that being said, what would we like? What do we want if we were to actually replace GitHub one day? Well, we want something which is free. We want to be able to use it locally. We want to be able to change it, to enhance it, to use it for our needs. We want something which is easy to use. That's one of the main features of GitHub. It's really easy to use. You eventually don't have to understand Git to be able to use GitHub. You just follow the commands. If you have the very, very basic Git knowledge, you can use GitHub and contribute to projects. We want something which facilitates collaboration. That's something which helps collaboration and doesn't get in your way. So here we are back on the pull request mechanisms. We want hooks, because hooks are fun and the developer likes them, and we want to be able to easily integrate more hooks onto the system. We want single login, because having to create yet another account is annoying. We have accounts everywhere these days, and having to enter one, remember the password, even if you use the password manager, it's just something which is annoying to do. We want something which can be integrated with other tools. So that's something which I did not put on the previous slide, but GitHub has a very well thought and documented API. And that allows tools like Travis CI to actually integrate within the GitHub platform itself. So we want to be able to integrate that with tools outside of GitHub itself. And since we are free software, we also want the possibility of moving out. So even if I'm not running my own instance, I want to be able to actually leave it. I want to be able to move from Fedora to mycompany.org. Maybe in this case. So we don't want to have vendor locking, basically. And then, so that's with all this in mind that I started to work on Plugit a little bit. I want it to be easy for users to create projects, so we don't have to go on the Fedora infrastructure track and open a ticket, and we can just click the button and create my project. It should be easy to use. It should have forks. You should be able to create and merge pull requests. We should be able to host the project documentation. At the moment, you can use it on track. You can have, but if you have the documentation in the source, it gets a little bit harder to integrate and to display because you will get the raw markdown, for example, or HTML. We want an issue tracker because, well, we still haven't managed to get bug-free software. Because we can't support everything on the first thing, then it has to be Git-centered. And we want the possibility to be moving out for all of it. So the specification which I was using is basically it's a Python-based software. It uses Flask for the UI and PyGit2 for the integration with Git. So PyGit2 is a Python wrapper around the libgit libraries, which is actually developed by GitHub. Again, in my case. So in 2 weeks, this is how far I went, as far as I can remember at least, within 2 weeks. So we have integration with Fast, which means that we don't have to render yet another login. If you have a Fast account, it's really easy to log in there and create your own project. It's a Git-centered view, so it's basically, in 2 weeks I was able to, well, in less than 2 weeks, I was actually able to replicate cgit. So you would be able to browse the repository, see the different branch, see the commits, see the diff of each commit separately. I'm going to try to show you a small demo at the end. Then I was the idea, okay, we have a Git for the repo, we could have a Git for the documentation as well. And being able just to render the REST or Markdown on the fly, so that the repo contains the raw file, and then what you see in the UI is basically the nice version of it. We have a very basic issue tracking system, so it's really, you can open, you have status, and you can add comments. It's about all it does at the moment. And I had the basic fork pull request merge mechanism. within the 2 weeks done. The only thing which was missing is that basically it's only allowed to do pull requests across projects. So I had to fork my own project to do a pull request against my own project. That's something which I later fixed. We are now, so yeah, this is how it looks today. But you basically, to finish on the pull request, you are now able to actually do pull request within a project between 2 branches, which kind of handy. So it does look, it's about 4,000 lines of code, including the documentation, so it's not only code. I have 2 hooks working, so one is just the one sending the emails for every commit. The other one is what I call the private hook, and one of the ideas is to be able to easily refill and close tickets from Git commits. This is something which is obvious in GitHub. It's something which has been bothering me for years on our track. So I actually managed to get that one right. Cool. And then I have the basic structure for an RFC hook. I'm just missing all the piece which is actually connect to the server and send a message. So kind of important piece, but the structure is there, and it should be pretty easy to actually add new plugins. It's basically implementing an interface on the application side and then just writing the Git hook itself. It's easy to create a project. It's again a two-step button, click on the new project and then enter the request information and create projects. And we have project settings, so this is a little bit like Github. You can basically turn on and off the project documentation, the Git for the project documentation, and the tickets. So that doesn't mean that things are deleted, it just means that they are not shown in the UI. It's just project settings. So, like I said, it does, now we do support pull request merging within 2 branches of the same project. I rely on Github for the authentication, so that just makes things easier for me. I don't have to reinvent the wheel, I just rely on Github on the back. And something which I've been including the last few weeks was basically the possibility of moving your tickets, of throwing the tickets in Git. So the idea is, of course, there is a database for all your tickets, and that's for every action that you do on a ticket, basically it's stored also in Git. So if you want to move away from your Git, you have the Git of your source, you have the Git of your documentation, and you have the Git of your tickets. You're going to say there is no Git for the pull request, but at the moment there is also no mechanisms to store comments to comment on pull requests, so that will have to be done. It's just not missing, well, it is missing something to be improved, but just not very. So yeah, the missing piece, well, this is actually not exactly true anymore since yesterday. I didn't have the integration with Git daemon, so that's something which we figured out yesterday. You can clone anonymously using just the git column / URL type. And the only thing about that is that when you have a fork, that allows you to just pull changes from the official repository, which is kind of handy when you actually work with a stream and don't have the right directly on the project. We need a lot of improvement on the UI and UX side. I'm not a UI designer, so it works, but it doesn't look nice. We need a documented and a dedicated API. So at the moment there is just basically no API. And one of the ideas which I was suggested is it would be actually quite nice if ProGit's API was actually compatible with GitHub API, so that tools like Travis API could actually be ported from GitHub to ProGit easily as well. Seeing the size of GitHub API, this is going to be quite a piece of work. But, so something forever. And then there is comments on how to do comments, and especially inline comments during the pull request mechanism. That's something also that has to be out. And then on the very small here, we have to cope with PyGit 2 updates, because libgit and PyGit are not the most stable API and API libraries. So compared to what we wanted, what do we have? We have a cloud platform which is easy to use. It's facilitated collaboration. We have a basic structure for hooks, and it should be easy to increase. We have single logging with fast. The only problem is that we don't have the API, so the integration part with other tools is lacking for the moment. And we have the possibility of moving out since everything is stored in Git. Something which I didn't mention, one of the hooks for the ticket git is that if you, so you can clone the ticket git, and if you push to it, then it will reload the tickets in the database. So you can really you could actually start it to have your project hosted in two places, with being the code in sync and the documentation and the ticket in sync in two places at the same time. Shall I continue, or do you actually want to see it? Then let's move to the UI. So like I said, I'm not a UI designer, I'm not a UI person in general, so this is a very basic UI which I've been putting up on the project so far. This is the front page, needs some love. Then we have inception of Progit and Progit. At the top we have the different branch, we have the file which are present in the Git repositories, we have the last 10 commits, and then we at the bottom we have the README and the different Git URL, so SSH and the Git daemon one. So you can look at the URL, but it's not going to load to this, so this is the default one which has to be overwritten in the settings. And this is my local instance, so I will give you the dev instance to show you some things. I'm running it on my local host here at the moment. To keep going, we have list of users, so you can just see them. There is a public profile page, so just what's the activity, what are the repository of the person. You have the settings, where you can put your public SSH key in there. If when you update the public SSH key, of course, the Github configuration gets updated directly, so that you actually are able to use Progit right after you put your SSH key in there. I've been working with Patrick so that we actually are able to directly retrieve your SSH key from FAS upon login. So that's something which is really on his side, and I just have to implement on my side. On the admin side, there are still just a couple of utility functions which are just there to regenerate the utility FCA and SSH authorized key files. And that's because when you develop, sometimes you miss some steps, and so these links are easy to just regenerate the file and see if everything is correct, and if you're not missing authorization for the Git tickets, the Git tickets, for example. So if we go back to the test project, we have different branches. We have, so at the moment there are no documentation, so it just gives you the default, I didn't find anything in this Git, this is how you should set it up. Here we just have the diff. You can see the diff is, could use some love again, but that basically is the basic. You can go back to the params as well. You can see the content of the Git, which at the moment is very simple, as you can see. We have basic issues. So when I say basic issues, it's really basic issues. This supports Markdown, but that's pretty much the only feature of the whole issue tracking system at the moment. You can directly edit the status there. You can edit the complete ticket from the beginning if you need to. We have pull requests, so at the moment we have one which was closed and 0 which were opened. And we have one fork which is from me. So if we look at the fork, one of the interesting things which on some of the branch we actually see a small star. That means that this ticket is present on this Git repository on the fork, but not present in the main one. So it directly allows you to either do a pull request for one commit, and of course what's below, or for all of them at once. So if you actually have 5 commits working on something and 5 commits working on something else, you're able to do the first 5 in one pull request, and the 10 of them in the second pull request, or just do the second pull request after it. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to take a big risk here, and I'm actually feeling like showing you live how it works. So I have two terminals here. The first one is the official test Git project, which I just showed you in the UI. So as you can see, there is only one file. If I look at the file itself, it's very complex, very hard to read the documentation. And on this side, I have also one file, and this is the same content. So they are at the moment, the two Git repositories are the same level. This is the fork, and the other one is the original one. So what we're going to do is edit our test file. We're going to be amazingly scary and add a new line. Save the file. We see the diff. We can commit, and then we're just going to git push. Apparently everything went through, so I'm happy with that. If I come back to my repository, I was in the branch another test, and I'm seeing the commit that we just added here. So let's hope Murphy doesn't kick in. We have the pull request page with the diff of what we are creating the pull request for. We can give it some titles to describe a little bit what the commit or the pull request is asking for. And then we just create it. We're back on the official project, on the pull request page. So we still have the pull request number 12 that's closed, and we now have the number 13 which is open. Upstream, you can see it, review it. We have one commit, this is the diff, and this is the small description of what it does. So as you can see, there is no commit, there is no online comments, and it needs some love in the UI point of view. But we can merge it, and apparently that didn't work. So Murphy did kick it. Okay, so let's see what that one. So it gave an error message, but we still have the commits which have been added. And now we have line 5 here, and if I come and pull, I actually have my line 5 which have to write. So the pull request merge worked, there is just an error message which should not have been there. But it worked. So this is a little bit how it works at the moment. There is a but, well there are more than once actually. The thing is, so Probit is not Github. We have yet another account. I mean, this is not Github's account, it's using Fast. It's good for Fedora because we already have our Fast account system. But compared to other people, it needs something else. So this is pretty bad. On the other side, it's pretty easy to change. So we could actually have ProGit rely on GitHub for loading. Should be pretty fun. It's easy to deploy, and you can have your own in-house project management using Git. And you can do distributed projects, so you could actually have an in-house ProGit and outside the external ProGit using different projects. You could synchronize the tickets between the two of them pretty easily. So this is something which is pretty cool. The other thing which I had not mentioned at all so far is all the social aspect which is present on GitHub. So you can actually like a project, you can add start them, you can watch them, you can see how they are doing, what they are doing. You can follow a project or a person. And then there is all the activity, so that goes with the contribution and attribution that I was speaking about that GitHub does very well. And you also have, so you have the activity of a person, you have the activity of a project, you can see if the project is alive, is maintained or not. And these are things which are very important for actually, it's one of the reasons that actually GitHub is succeeding so good, because it makes you go to GitHub on a pretty much daily basis to see what's going on if you have notification. Some of them are sent by email, but not all of them, so if you don't go there, you actually lose them. The fact that you can follow a project is very handy when you work with other projects or depends on some libraries. If you have bugs reports which are open that you're following, you will get some of the emails. You don't get all the activity. So all the social aspect of GitHub is also what makes GitHub GitHub. That's one of the reasons why ProGit is a nice little Git-centered fork, but it's not GitHub, and it's never going to be GitHub unless we actually embed the social component in it. And that's basically a complete different project from what I have at the moment. And then there is the question of past, present, and future for ProGit. So it basically started as a playground. I wanted to look at the integration between Python and Git. I heard a lot of people complaining about GitHub because it's not a free software project. So, well, can I combine both and just look at how hard it is to actually duplicate GitHub from a technical point of view, leaving the social aspects aside? So it was a good exercise, it was a good question, it was a good playground, and it just provided a start of an answer to Github is a free program. What it is now is a prototype. It works. You've seen that I was able to create a pull request, merge it. You can have tickets, you can comment on that. The basic is there. The problem is it's really a prototype, it's not mature enough, there is still a lot of bugs. I've been fixing some yesterday again. So one of the questions is what's the future for Probit? And that's something which I would like to answer with you, or try to answer with you. There are a lot of things that we can do with it. We can push it forward. We can try to make it a substitute for track on Fedora stick. We can try to make it to move it onto yet another fork or centered around Git. Or we can also try to trim down some of the feature, focus on the fork and pull request merge mechanism, and add this as a front end for our Git repos for spec files. So in the place of packages.fedoraproject.org. There is a lot of potential. The question is, where do we want to go with it? And yeah, is there an interest for that? So that's basically the end of my talk. I'm giving you here the IP address. So this is the actual dev instance. I was running it locally. This is the official one which you can use. You can log in with Fast. You can create your project there. You can fork your own project. You can ask people to fork it for you. You can create your own issue. You will run into bugs, and please either come to me or please come to me either to report it or just to do the budget will be a little later. And with this, I will be able to take any questions, and there is only one.
So the direction I would like to see this going is have this integrated with Koji.
Mm-hmm.
We have Fedora Next, and Maureen made these awesome mock-ups for the Fedora homepage where you can just easily create a Fedora account. I mean, Patrick did the Fedora Alpha thing, next version, and what I would like Fedora to become is a community like GitHub that is extremely easy to join, and where people can just contribute even if they just close one or two issues or file new ones, but also, so I find myself in the situation that I'm very busy with my day job. I don't have much time to maintain all my packages, and I get more and more of these trivial bug reports where people just say, can you update this package? I already made a scratch build and it worked, it builds. Or here I have a patch for you, can you please apply it? And I would like to see this, that having them fork my package from packages.fedoraproject.org and make them, enable them to do a scratch build, and then get back to me here where I just need to basically merge, and not only merge in the Git side of things, the code, but also that I could take over their build. I'm not sure how much effort this is, but I mean, if they did already build it.
Yeah, but they did a scratch build, which is different from
So if we did it properly in Koji, we needed tons of side repos, because every forked repo would be a tag of its own in the code. That's probably not preferable.
I don't think the Koji developer would follow us on that. So we can probably just add this in package of
yeah, but something like open build service. I mean, they have their own home projects, or what they call them, and you can then just what they do is just they merge the spec files and then kick off another build.
And so there are, on this side there is, having it in place of package of Fedoraproject.org brings us several advantages. You can easily fork the project to propose a change to the spec file, for example, on a day. You could actually also fork it to have it run on Copper, because you actually want to test a new version and you just want to keep the spec file separate, have it on Copper. When it's ready and when it works, you can get a pull request. The third solution would be also SCL. If you want to have being able to maintain your SCL in a public way, then you could actually fork the original package, create a package for the SCL, and then you just end up with two Git repos which are following each other, just one for SCL, one for the filtration of your packages, and with the same interface. And then again, you can also fork a fork. You just can't yourself fork your fork. But if Kevin does a fork of one of my project, I can fork Kevin's changes and work from there. And then from there I can make a pull request to Kevin that can make a pull request to my project.
We should be able to build in Koji, we just have to figure out authentication, but we won't be able to take over an existing build. It would be merge and then kick off a new build.
Yeah, I mean, just kicking off a new build for a certain target would be perfectly enough.
Right.
I mean, we still need to do Bodhi dance and everything. Kicking off a build would be awesome.
Right. And it's just the authentication piece that'll be really.
Is that Rick's problem?
No, it's more than just authentication because we need the Koji certificate and we need to submit it for a specific user.
Exactly. And that's the trick part.
You said you were trying to answer the question, we want something like GitHub, but GitHub is not free open source.
Yeah.
So GitHub released GitLab in September 2011, I think.
GitLab is from GitHub?
No, it's separate project.
Okay. I thought so, sorry. Anyways, have you considered that?
So we do have people working on packaging GitLab in Fedora, but not a product. There are two problems here. GitLab in itself is a huge file of packaging, and it's a pretty long list of dependencies that have to be packaged in order for the project to be able to make it to the Fedora infrastructure. And the second problem is that the Fedora infrastructure itself doesn't have any expertise in Ruby, and even less Ruby on Rails, which makes it basically we are not keen on running projects on which nobody knows how to fix it when it goes well. And therefore, it always goes well on a Sunday when the people who are from the community who volunteers to help to maintain things are taking their day off because it's their holidays, their birthday. It also happens when we take our days off, but we have enough expertise in the team that if someone is missing, someone else can jump in. And even in the community, we have had in the past that's always when we want to have someone in the community that wants to make a project on Fedora, we welcome them with open arms if it doesn't come along. He or she doesn't come along. So if we have a group of persons that are willing and dedicated to spend the time in time, so it's not spending the time in for 3 months, 6 months, but it's spending the time for 3 months, 6 months to get it in, and then for 2 years to actually keep it running. And we have this group of people that are actually experts enough in the field and that they are able to take over each other when one is missing, then there will not be a problem. But we have, for example, AskBot, the Ask the Fedora project, which has been brought by the community. We had a nice small pool of people at the beginning, and now there is this pool of people is actually shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, which to the point that when we actually have a problem, either we have to dive in ourselves or we actually have a problem to find someone who has the time to dive in it again. So that's the problem of maintaining packages. You do that on your maintaining applications, so packages. You do that on your free time, but your contributor, your life takes over Fedora for obvious reason, and we can't ask someone who is contributing on his free time to be on code, basically, to be able to drop his daughter's birthday, to be able to come and look why the system is suddenly not responding. So the combination of the fact that we don't have the expertise in Ruby in the team, and the fact that GitLab itself is very hard to package, has a lot of dependencies, and the Ruby world, I'm not going to shout too great to GitLab because otherwise he's going to hear me on the mic, has, how shall I say, an history with dependencies, is that correct? Makes it harder for the packaging side and getting maintenance correct and working properly. So, but there is an effort. There are people looking at it. It's something which has been working on as part of Google Summer Core. I think we had students working on packaging last year. Yeah. We still have people working on it, so we might actually end up having GitLab working on Fedora at some point. It's just a long-term effort. It's not the 2 weeks which I just put in there.
How many people are working on
the project? On project? Well, there is an easy solution to that.
Which one is it?
No? that's about the number of people that are contributing. About. I can slow down. So yeah, I have it on my own server, which has a cdit interface. I have it on Github and I have it on Probit itself. And well, having Probit on Probit means dogfooding. Having it on GitHub means exposure, and having it on my own server means backup. And not only GitHub, basically. And so there is one thing which I should mention is that the IP address which I gave you, I have a small problem with it. So I might need to, it's a cloud image on the Fedora cloud, and I might need to rebuild it. So we have to be careful on trying to keep the IP stable. I don't know if we can actually manage that. But I actually managed to kick out SSH yesterday, so I can't log in anymore. So it's very stable at the moment. No feature added, no bug removed. I can't log in on the machine anymore. So I can't push anything either. So the latest version is actually on GitHub and not on Probit right now. Any other questions?
Why is it named Probit? Is there any connection with the Probit book?
No, I didn't know about the Probit book, but when I started using it, people told me, yeah, there is already a book like this. This was just Project Git, Probit.
I think it makes it difficult to look up it.
So one of the since then I've been thinking about it, so maybe I will rename it, and I had 4 Gits in mind. Like forge Git, for Git. You can play a number of tunes around that, so I was like, maybe I will rename it and just make it 4 Git. The idea of forge around Git. That's the idea.
So it started before April?
Yeah.
So it's not 2 weeks?
No, the 2 weeks are pretty much somewhere around here. And then it's been once in a while when I get time. It has taken me a little bit of time to get, that was the basic. Then recently, this is probably adding the Git plugin for the ticket system, because I wanted to be able, I was like, so we have a problem with GitHub, we can't move away from it, so how can I make sure that people stay in it? So we can move away from Git, or maybe hosting in 2 different places at the same time, keeping it in sync. So that's taken me a little bit of time. And this is most likely the hook part. When I was, so one of the problems of hooks is that emails is very easy, because you just get the commits, send an email. But for the Probit hook, you actually need to access the database. And then I had the problem of, okay, how do I access the database session without multiplying the session by the number of hooks which are running at the same time? And how can I retrieve the database configuration, so username, password, database name, and so on, without duplicating the information on the system? So that's just taking me a little bit of time before I figured out actually it was a simple solution, but just need to figure it out. So there's gaps in activity. And then Moshe has been helping me and he's still not reading, so it's nice. He comes like, trying that, and didn't work. Okay, let me check this.
Have you considered something like Git backend for track or something like that? Because I don't like yet another issue system which, you know, everybody will have to migrate to, because most Fedora projects have track. It would be really easy to just somehow convert the track database to your Git backend and let them use track or something like that. But I didn't thought about it. Maybe it's totally crazy.
So the track database contains the issues, so that's something which should be able to at some point to map out. The issues needs to be added, so we could add the fields which are also present on the track. One of the problems is going to be the wiki page, which in track are stored in the database, and here they should be stored in the Git. So that's probably going to be manual work, or at least some sort of manual work. Although we may be able to just export the wiki page directly from the database into one text file, and then let the user clone and reorganize things properly afterwards. So moving from track to Probit might be something we should do. But that's only when we reach the point.
Different. I meant really use the Git as a backend for the track, so you could be still able to use the tag and the ticketing system in tag, but store everything in Git and somehow interconnect Git with tag, basically. So you would not have to write again wiki and all sorts of.
Track already works with Git backend. That's you can already use Git with track.
But I don't mean only for source,
but for tickets
for
and
tickets and so on.
I've not thought about it. I didn't think about it. That could be eventually something. One of my ideas was I actually want to move away from track. It's nice, but I want to do something new. And then I need the integration to learn the integration between Python and Git. So I actually started with the source code visualization part, and then the pull request. So I think the pull request in Git in track might be something. The UI of track is really not meant for forking and pull requesting. So that's something which you would have to have a different way of building the track UI.
One other idea, would it be possible to implement pull requests without forcing the user to create the account and Git? For example, I want to do just one simple commit, so I just clone the original project to my computer, do the change commit, and just send or basically push to some branch without creating the account, so it would show up in Git like anonymous pull request from this guy. He says that his email is this, and take the code or
the problem here is going to be how do we push? At the moment we push via SSH, and to push via SSH you need your project key to be working. So in your case the approach would be a Git format patch and Git send email. That's probably the best approach you can do. And then that you don't create anything, you just send an email to the maintainer saying, well, I have this patch that does this.
Maybe some option how to import the patch as a pull request so you can see it in the interface.
That would be good, definitely. Pull request from patch with the
or patch set.
That would be fun.
What about distros? This is only for Fedora.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that makes it specific to Fedora is basically it relies on Fedora for authentication, but it's basically using OpenID at the moment, and it relies on a Fedora specific OpenID plugin, which you could replace by the normal OpenID plugin, which means that you can, if you run Git on your machine, you can ask, well, anybody with an OpenID account can actually log in, create a fork, and contribute. I have a project on which I am able to actually move from either you log in with FAS. It's a configuration setting, so you don't have the choice between the two. But when you set up, you can say, well, my users are going to log in with FAS, or they are going to log in using username and password stored in the database locally. And that's just a configuration settings saying, well, use the FAS authentication, use the local authentication, and you could add more plugins, FAS, OpenID, some local username and password.
Yeah, I was thinking on having this on Debian.
Having this on Debian means basically having the plugin to hook up to the Debian system. So it is doable, and FAS is pretty easy to write. So it's really a matter of having the plugin written, or eventually just having the switch in the configuration and use that one. Anything else? And I think we are already beyond the time, so thank you for all your questions. Any other questions?